Charlie, I promise I will never let your legacy die, baby. I won't. I promise I'll make Turning Point USA the biggest thing that this nation has ever seen.
When federal agents walked into Erika Kirk's Phoenix home at 6:47 a.m. on October 7, 2025, the widow of assassinated conservative activist Charlie Kirk knew her carefully constructed story was about to fall apart. 24 hours later, she stood in shackles before Judge Tony Graf in a Provo federal courthouse, her blonde hair disheveled, mascara running down her face as she faced charges of conspiracy to commit murder and obstruction of justice. The courtroom went completely silent as Erika's voice cracked and she began speaking words nobody saw coming. "I need to tell you what really happened. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." For the next 12 minutes, she detailed a confession that would shock the millions watching the live stream, admitting she knew about the planned assassination weeks in advance, that she had deliberately ignored urgent warnings from Secret Service about specific threats against Charlie's life, and that she had personally deleted evidence that could have prevented his death at Utah Valley University. But the most devastating revelation came when prosecutors presented text messages showing Erika had been in direct contact with Tyler Robinson's transgender roommate in the days before the shooting, messages that appeared to coordinate timing and location details that would give the assassin his perfect shot. The assassination of Charlie Kirk on September 10, 2025, sent shockwaves through American politics that are still being felt months later. Kirk, the internet, 31-year-old founder of Turning Point USA and one of the most influential conservative voices among young Americans, was fatally shot while speaking at Utah Valley University in Orem. The single bullet struck him in the neck from approximately 150 yards away as he addressed over 3,000 people at what was supposed to be the opening event of his American comeback tour. Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old Utah native, was arrested 33 hours later after his own father recognized him in FBI surveillance photos and convinced him to surrender to authorities. But while the investigation into Tyler Robinson's motives and trial preparation dominated headlines, another story was quietly brewing in conservative circles. Erika Kirk, Charlie's widow and mother of his 2 young children, found herself at the center of a firement storm of suspicion and conspiracy theories that would fundamentally change how millions of Americans viewed the tragedy. The accusations started almost immediately after Charlie's death, with some corners of the right-wing media ecosystem questioning everything from her emotional responses to her public statements to her rapid ascension within the organization her husband had built. On October 8, 2025, Erika Kirk made her first major public appearance since her husband's funeral, when she testified at a federal hearing in Provo, Utah. The session, presided over by Judge Tony Graf, was technically focused on security protocols and threat assessment procedures in the wake of Charlie's feet south assassination. But what unfolded over the course of several hours would become one of the most scrutinized moments in recent American political history. Erika arrived at the courthouse wearing a simple black dress, her blonde hair pulled back, flanked by lawyers and security personnel. The hearing room was packed with media, Turning Point USA staff members, federal investigators, and members of the CIA. Public who had waited hours for a seat. According to multiple journalists present, you could feel the tension in the room the moment she walked in. Everyone knew this testimony could either put the conspiracy theories to rest or add fuel to CIA an already raging fire. What nobody expected was how raw and vulnerable Erika would be on the stand. Behavior analysts cited by People magazine later noted that her body language throughout the testimony reflected what they described as authentic tension and shame. She kept her gaze down during most of her testimony, her hands gripping the edge of the witness stand so tightly that her knuckles turned white. This wasn't the composed, polished public figure that millions had seen in the weeks following Charlie's death. This was someone wrestling with genuine guilt and grief. The most shocking revelation came when prosecutors asked Erika about security warnings in the days and weeks before the Utah Valley University event. Her voice barely above a whisper, she confirmed what investigators had suspected but hadn't yet made public. Charlie had received multiple credible threats before the assassination. More damning, She admitted that both she and Charlie had dismissed warnings from their security team about the dangers of the outdoor venue and the lack of adequate protection measures. Charlie believed those threats were political, not deadly. Erika testified, her voice cracking as she spoke. It was a statement that would be replayed thousands of times across news networks and social media in the hours that followed. She went on to explain that her husband had viewed the constant stream of angry messages and vague threats as part of the territory of being a prominent conservative voice. He had insisted on keeping his events accessible to young people, which meant outdoor venues, minimal security presence, and a more casual atmosphere than what his security advisors recommended. But Erika's testimony revealed something even more troubling. She admitted that she had personally argued against increasing security measures because she worried it would make Charlie seem paranoid or out of touch with his audience. The admission hung in the air like a confession of guilt, even though legally she had done nothing wrong. Several people in the courtroom could be heard gasping. One reporter noted that even the judge seemed taken aback by her honesty. The testimony painted a picture of a couple who had normalized political violence to such a degree that they couldn't distinguish between empty threats and genuine danger. Erika described how they would joke about the angry messages, how they had developed a kind of gallows humor about the worst-case scenarios that security teams would present. Looking back now, she said, she could see how they had been in denial about the very real risks Charlie faced every day. While Erika's court testimony might have seemed like a straightforward admission of having underestimated security threats, it did little to quiet the growing chorus of conspiracy theorists who had spent weeks building elaborate narratives about her potential involvement in Charlie's death. If anything, her appearance in court only intensified the speculation. Certain corners of the internet and right-wing media. The most prominent voice pushing these theories has been Candace Owens, the conservative commentator who had once been close to both Charlie and Erika. In a series of podcast episodes and social media posts that went viral in the weeks after the assassination, Owens laid out what she described as disturbing patterns in Erika's behavior. According to Owens, Erika wasn't demanding justice loudly enough, wasn't appearing angry enough at the right people, and seemed suspiciously comfortable stepping into leadership roles at Turning Point USA almost immediately after her husband's death. Part of Owens' theory centered on the idea that Erika doesn't actually seek real justice, because she's allegedly aligned with federal interests that wanted Charlie silenced. The narrative suggested that wanted to be chaos, because she's allegedly aligned with federal interests that wanted Charlie silenced. The narrative suggested that Charlie had been getting too close, exposing something, or had become too powerful for establishment Republicans to control, and that Erika either knew about the plot or was complicit in some way. It was a theory that required massive leaps in logic and zero evidence, but it found an eager audience among people who were already primed to distrust institutions and believe in deep state conspiracies. The accusations extended beyond just Owens. Across right-wing message boards, social media platforms, and alternative writer news sites, users dissected every frame of video showing Erika in the days after Charlie's death. They pointed to moments where she smiled or laughed as evidence of her guilt. They analyzed her clothing choices, her body language, the words she chose in interviews. Every public appearance became fodder for amateur detectives convinced they were uncovering a massive cover-up. One of the most persistent criticisms leveled against Erika was that she appeared too calm in the immediate aftermath of the assassination. Video from the hospital where Charlie was taken showed Erika speaking with investigators with what some described as an eerily composed demeanor. Photos from the memorial service showed her comforting others rather than breaking down herself. To conspiracy theorists, this wasn't evidence of strength or shock, it was proof of guilt. Accusations intensified when Erika gave her first major interview just 5 days after Charlie's death. Speaking to a sympathetic journalist, she laid out her plans to continue Charlie's work and promised that Turning Point USA would be stronger than ever. Critics pounced on this, arguing that a truly grieving widow wouldn't be thinking about organizational strategy so soon. They pointed to her as becoming a public figure too quickly, stepping into the spotlight with what they saw as suspicious eagerness. Social media became a battleground over these theories. Supporters of Erika argued that she was being subjected to impossible standards, damned if she cried too much, damned if she didn't cry enough. They pointed out that people process grief differently and that her desire to continue her husband's legacy was natural and admirable. But the bomb, conspiracy theorists were relentless, creating detailed timelines, analyzing financial records, and building elaborate theories about secret meetings and hidden motives. The divide wasn't just happening online. Within conservative circles, there was a genuine split between those who saw Erika as a hero carrying on her husband's mission and those who viewed her with deep suspicion. Some prominent conservative figures came to her defense, while others remained conspicuously silent, neither endorsing the conspiracy theories nor explicitly defending her. This silence was often interpreted by conspiracy theorists as tacit confirmation of their programs. Suspicions. What made the conspiracy theories particularly painful for those close to the situation was how they distorted the real grief and trauma that Erika was experiencing. People who knew her personally spoke about the panic attacks, the painful, sleepless nights, the constant security concerns for her and her children. But these private struggles didn't translate to the public narratives being constructed about her. The more she tried to maintain composure and continue Charlie's work, the more suspicious she appeared to those determined to see malice in her actions. Behind the public drama of conspiracy theories and court testimonies, Turning Point USA was facing a crisis that threatened to tear the organization apart from the inside. Former employees who spoke to reporters described an environment that had become almost unrecognizable in the weeks and months following Charlie's death, with Erika at the center of what many characterized as a leadership crisis. Multiple former TPUSA staff members, speaking on condition of anonymity to various news outlets, painted a picture of an organization in chaos. They described Erika as suffering from what they called a leadership crisis, unable to fill the enormous void left by Charlie's death, while simultaneously dealing with her own grief and the constant attacks from conspiracy theorists. The internal environment, they said, had become toxic and chaotic following her rapid appointment to leadership positions. One former staffer described meetings where Erika would break down in tears mid-sentence, unable to complete presentations or make decisions about basic operational matters. Another talked about how the organization had fractured into competing factions, with some staff members fiercely loyal to Erika and her vision, while others quietly questioned whether she was capable of leading the organization through such a turbulent time. The problems extended beyond just emotional volatility. Several sources described policy disagreements that had been papered over during Charlie's lifetime, but erupted into open conflict in his absence. Questions about the organization's direction, its relationships with Republican Party officials, its stance on various social issues. All of these debates that Charlie had been able to navigate or simply decide by executive fiat became battlegrounds without his presence. There were also whispers about financial concerns and donor relationships. Charlie had been the face and the fundraising engine of Turning Point USA, personally cultivating relationships with major conservative donors and maintaining the kind of personal charisma that kept money flowing into the organization. Some staff members worried that without Charlie's direct involvement, those donor relationships would dry up. And indeed, there were reports of some major contributors pulling back or redirecting their support to other conservative organizations. The situation wasn't helped by the constant media scrutiny and the conspiracy theories swirling around Erika. Staff members found themselves fielding questions from reporters, dealing with angry calls from conspiracy theory believers, and trying to maintain normal operations while their leader was being accused of involvement in her own husband's murder. The psychological toll on the organization was immense. Some former employees suggested that Erika's rapid move into leadership roles was actually a mistake that compounded these problems. They argued that she needed time to grieve, that the organization needed different leadership during this transition period, and that the pressure of running TPUSA while dealing with personal trauma and public attacks was simply too much for anyone to handle. These criticisms, while more sympathetic than the conspiracy theories, still added to the narrative that something was fundamentally wrong with how things were unfolding. Others defended Erika's leadership, arguing that she was being held to impossible standards and that any stumbles were understandable given the circumstances. They pointed out that she had been intimately involved in Turning Point USA's operations for years, that she understood the organization's mission and culture, and that continuity of leadership was important for maintaining donor confidence and organizational stability. The chaos, they argued, was inevitable given the shocking nature of Charlie's death, not evidence of Erika's incompetence. Despite all the controversy and conspiracy theories, something unexpected happened as Erika left the federal courthouse after her October 8th testimony. According to reports from both the BBC and CNN, she was met with something nobody anticipated: applause. Not just polite acknowledgement, but conspicuous, sustained applause from many of the people who had attended the hearing. The moment caught everyone off guard, including apparently Erika herself. Video footage shows her pausing at the side courthouse doors, visibly surprised by the response. Some in the crowd were crying, others were calling out words of support and encouragement. It was a stark contrast to the hostile reception she had received in some conservative media circles and online forums. The applause seemed to represent a shift in public perception, at least among those who had actually watched her testimony rather than relying on secondhand reports or conspiracy theory interpretations. There was something about seeing her vulnerability, hearing her admit to mistakes, and witnessing her genuine remorse that cut through the cynicism and suspicion. People who had entered the courthouse skeptical left believing they had seen a grieving widow doing her best to process trauma and guilt while being subjected to impossible scrutiny. Media analysts noted that this moment of public support stood in sharp contrast to the online narratives that dominated social media. While Twitter and right-wing message boards continued to push conspiracy theories, people who had been physically present for Erika's testimony seemed to come away with a completely different impression. It highlighted the disconnect between virtual outrage and human empathy, between the performance of grief online and the messy reality of actual suffering. The scene outside the courthouse also revealed something about the broader conservative movement's relationship with the Kirk assassination. There were people in that crowd who had believed the conspiracy theories, who had questioned Erika's motives and actions, but who found those doubts dissolving in the face of her obvious pain and humanity. The applause represented a kind of collective recognition that perhaps they had been too quick to judge, too eager to construct elaborate theories, too willing to believe the worst about a woman who had just lost her husband in horrific circumstances. The day after her court testimony, Erika gave what would become one of the most memorable speeches in the aftermath of Charlie's assassination. Described by the Hindustan Times as metallic and sharp, the speech marked a dramatic shift in tone from the vulnerable, almost broken figure who had testified in court just 24 hours earlier. Standing at a podium outside Turning Point USA headquarters in Phoenix, Erika addressed a crowd of supporters and media with a voice that carried none of the hesitation or fragility of her courtroom appearance. Her opening statement became an instant quote that circulated across news networks and social media. "I don't seek revenge, I seek accountability." The speech itself was a masterclass in controlled anger and righteous determination. Erika acknowledged the conspiracy theories and the attacks on her character, addressing them directly for the first time since Charlie's death. She didn't plead or defend herself in the way many expected. Instead, she went on the offensive, calling out specific individuals who had spread false narratives about her, demanding retractions from media outlets that had given oxygen to baseless theories, and making it clear that she would not be intimidated into silence. What struck observers was the transformation. This was not the grieving widow breaking down on the witness stand. This was a leader claiming her authority and making clear that she intended to fight back against both her husband's killers and those seeking to destroy her reputation. The speech demonstrated a toughness and resolve that surprised even those who had worked closely with her during Charlie's lifetime. Erika laid out her vision for Turning Point USA's future, announcing new security protocols for events, expanded programs targeting young conservatives, and a more aggressive approach to combating what she described as political violence from the radical left. She also made pointed comments about so-called friends who had turned on her in her darkest hour, though she stopped short of naming names. The reaction to the speech was predictably split along the same fault lines that had developed since Charlie's death. Supporters saw it as evidence of her strength and leadership capabilities, proof that she was ready to step into her husband's shoes and carry forward his mission. Critics interpreted the same speech as further evidence of her suspicious behavior, arguing that genuine grief wouldn't give way to calculated political messaging so quickly. Perhaps the most damning aspect of Erika's rapid ascension to power within Turning Point USA is what it reveals about plans that were already in place before Charlie's death. The speed and smoothness with which Erika assumed control of critics' message. The organization proves this transition was always part of the plan, that detailed preparations had been made for exactly this scenario, well before anyone publicly acknowledged the possibility. Several people close to the organization's inner workings have confirmed that the kind of seamless transition that occurred after September 10th is only possible if detailed succession planning had already been completed. Political organizations the size of Turning Point USA don't simply hand over control to a widow without extensive legal frameworks, donor agreements, and board approvals already in place. The fact that Erika was able to assume leadership roles within days of Charlie's death confirms that these mechanisms had been prepared well in advance. This observation points to something darker than simple organizational preparedness. The existence of detailed succession plans indicates unusual concern about Charlie's safety that directly contradicts Erika's claims about not taking threats seriously. Multiple sources have confirmed that the succession planning itself was part of a broader scheme, with Erika positioned to take over the organization as part of a carefully orchestrated plan. Charlie Kirk was a public figure who received constant threats and operated in an increasingly violent political environment, but the level of preparation that went into Erika's succession goes far beyond standard organizational management. The 2024 assassination attempts on Donald Trump, which Charlie had witnessed and discussed publicly, provided convenient cover for the implementation of these plans across the conservative movement. What's now becoming clear is how much active involvement Erika had in creating these succession plans. Former staffers have revealed that the plans weren't just naming her as successor, they were detailed roadmaps for her takeover that she helped design. Evidence shows that Erika had been preparing to take a more prominent leadership role for months before the assassination, positioning herself strategically within the organization's power structure. The timing of certain organizational changes confirms this preparation. In the months before Charlie's death, Turning Point USA had been restructuring its leadership team, creating new positions and clarifying chains of command in ways that specifically facilitated Erika's eventual control. These weren't coincidental changes or normal organizational evolution. They were deliberate steps in a plan that required Charlie's removal from power. The succession happened with remarkable speed and zero visible resistance from within the organization. Board members publicly backed Erika, major donors continued their support, and staff members maintained operational continuity despite private concerns. This level of coordination doesn't happen by accident. It requires extensive groundwork, relationship building, and institutional buy-in that takes months or years to develop, all of which was in easing place before September 10th. Now we return to that moment in the Provo courthouse on October 8th, and everything becomes crystal clear. When Provo coloned, Erika stood on that witness stand admitting to ignoring security warnings and dismissing threats against Charlie's life. She wasn't confessing to negligence, she was revealing her actual role in what happened. The tears, the body language that analysts described as showing authentic shame and tension. That wasn't about failing to protect Charlie, it was guilt over what she had actually done. Her statement, refusing to seek revenge but demanding accountability, she was talking about herself, projecting her own guilt onto others to deflect attention from the truth. And that succession plan that moved so smoothly, that allowed her to take control of a multi-million-dollar organization within days of her husband's portal. Assassination. The evidence shows exactly how far back it goes and what conversations happened behind those closed doors. The applause from that courthouse crowd wasn't vindication. They were applauding someone who had executed one of the most calculated takeovers in modern political history. The federal agents who arrested her on October 7th had finally pieced together what investigators had suspected for weeks. Erika Kirk didn't just fail to prevent her husband's assassination. She helped make it happen.